Hello and welcome to Bud's RPG Review, where I give my thoughts on role-playing games, card games and board games. Welcome to part 2 of my review of 1982's Cults of Prax for RuneQuest 2nd edition by Chaosium. In part 1 I discussed the barbarian gods, Stormbull, Dakafal, Waha and Eritha, and the invader deities, Humact, Pavis, the Seven Mothers and Yelmalio, and the inner workings of how these cults operate, as well as how they interact with each other and Gloranthan society. The next section we have to discuss is about the Lightbringers, Orlanth, Shalamar, Lankormai and Asaris. The Lightbringers are a group of deities that are set apart from the likes of the barbarian gods due to their civilized relations. There were actually 7 Lightbringers, the previously mentioned 4, plus Ermal, who was not worshipped in Prax, Fleshman, and Ginnajar, who was not worshipped at all. Fleshman was a mortal grandchild of Grandfather Mortal, who was the first man to live on the slopes of the Spike. Along with Ermal and Humact, he witnessed the death of Grandfather Mortal, and his cries of anguish failed to warn the greater beings of the cosmos. As death began to weigh upon the world, Fleshman became more crazed by the burden of his knowledge. Even Aroin could not cure him of his madness. Shilana Aroi, ever passive, watched as the world grew ill, and she sat waiting for the disease of the cosmos to arrive, but it never did. She met Fleshman and chose to follow him, as he said he was heading for a great doom, and so they set off on the Lightbringer's quest. Orlanth had slain the sun god Yelm, and as he passed into the underworld, Glorantha went into the lesser darkness. Orlanth made the decision to make right his mistake, and his path crossed with that of Fleshman and Shalamar Aroi, and they joined together. Asaris had been robbed of his home on the Spike and began to wander, and met Lankormai, and the two became friends. The grandson of the holder of knowledge, Arcos, Lankormai had begun collecting the broken pieces of the Spike when it had exploded so he could use its secrets for himself, but even so he joined with the other Lightbringers in their quest. Ermal the trickster had begun as a mischievous type, but had graduated to more and more dangerous schemes as the world aged. It was him that had discovered the sword Death hidden deep within the underworld, and who had guided Humact to it. He had also helped Orlanth steal it from Humact until his Araxaran borrow it. Orlanth forced Ermal to lead them on their chosen path. The gods moved towards the west across Glorantha until they reached the edge of the world. There they met Ginnajar, an enigma that seemed to shift between male and female who would assist or interfere but never take form. Ginnajar's identity remains unknown, although it is speculated that they may have been the ghost of Glorantha, or as they are usually known, Arachne Solara. The Lightbringers finally reached Hell, with every one of them suffering losses and learning much. The dead fled their approach as they found Yelm. Orlanth and Yelm agreed to terms that would allow them to exist in harmony, and the other deities agreed so that when Stormbull defeated Wakboth, Arachne Solara trapped and devoured him. Time was born, and the gods reassembled the shattered world as they went. Yelm, preceded by his daughter Dawn, returned to the world of the living and released time into the cosmos, and thus history began. The first Lightbringer detailed is Asaris. Associated with the runes of mobility, harmony, and the unique Asaris rune, one that is only used in trade functions, Asaris is the son of Larnster and Harana Elor, the gods of the celestial court that ruled over change and harmony. He had a privileged existence on the Spike and was known to be smart, smooth-tongued and filled with a sense of wanderlust. It is said that he was a messenger who passed secret notes between sky and earth, which led to the begetting of Umath. Asaris had performed many different functions during the Gods' War, and sometimes acted as a witness to what happened. When the darkness arrived, Asaris stayed calm as he had seen it on his travels, but the march of death troubled him. He had prepared the spell of passage to set off and find the light of communication in the world, and on his way he found the Lightbringers and joined them. His cult worship him as the god of language, speech, passage, travel, roads and trade. He is known as the Guardian of the Way. After Yelm returned to the world, he set off around Glorantha to guide people back to civilization. He had many children who developed into subcults such as Harst, who taught the people of Dragon's Pass how to speak for the price of a handful of spare grain, and Garzine or Middleman, who taught the trade talk language among the different races. His third son was called Golden Tongue, or Trader Prince, who was a singer and wanderer, and who met one of Lankormai's daughters who was called Mother Language. The cult of wandering merchants is his. Asaris also had a daughter called Eteres, who grew tired and fled to hear the words of a young goddess to the far north. This was the Red Goddess, and she taught Eteres to be the guide upon the threads of the lunar pantheon. The cult makes great promises to its worshippers, saying that they will have life beyond death, and Asaris' golden tongue is the spirit guide. The very existence of trade and civilization means that this cult is a requirement. Although the cult generally doesn't wield any power in an official sense, merchants often hold power beyond their station, and members of this cult are no exception. The cult has a dislike of hyenas as they are parts of the dead body of Gennet, and they have a friendly rivalry with the Lankormai cult, though they will often support each other. They generally shun war and try to maintain a neutral stance, although like all Lightbringers they hate chaos and have a strong dislike for darkness. The cult has no intercult organisation as such, and temples of Asaris are rarely found outside of major trade centres, and they have no place that is revered. Lay membership requires the purchase of a statue of Asaris from an initiate or rune-ranked member, and a skill of bargaining can be learned. Rune Lords are almost exclusively Golden Tongue members, and they are much sought after as caravan guards. Rune Priests have the ability of constructing and maintaining neutral market grounds, and their rune magic is used to aid in exchange for trade. They can never steal except from those who stole from them. They get the 1-point rune spells Lock, Special Lock and Create Great Market, the 2-point spells Spell Trading, which allows them to trade rune spells with a priest of any other cult, and Path Watch, and the 3-point spell Create Market. The spirit of reprisal is known as raw greed and will cause the transgressor to gain something called a greed factor, which becomes a percentile chance to be overcome by greed in any appropriate situation. They're also associated with the cult of Herald Goodword, one of Asari's sons. The cult gains the 1-point rune spell Telekinesis from Orlanth, and from Lancor Mai the 1-point Analyse Magic and 2-point Knowledge spell. From Shalamar Arroy they gained a 1-point Heal Area spell. Interestingly, mules are a favoured beast of the cult of Asaris that was said to have been invented by the deity in order to make something to sell out of nothing. Also, amongst horse haters they can be claimed to be not horses, and amongst horse lovers they are claimed to be horse kin. Next up is Shalamar Arroy. Associated with the runes of life and harmony, Shalamar Arroy is the daughter of Glorantha. Known for her kindness, she aided Orlanth, Asaris, Yelm, Humac, Dinalda, Hykem and many others. She has a son, Aroin, who is beloved by the world. During the Gods' War, she made many efforts to heal the wounded, although she never committed to any side, despite being courted by many. When the darkness came and the celestial court was shattered by chaos, she met with Aroin in the centre of the world and found a being they could not heal, a dead god. She decided at this point that her passivity no longer worked, although Aroin urged her to maintain her purity for the sake of the cosmos. As they debated this, they met Fleshman, who Aroin tried to heal, though Fleshman still fled. Shalamar Arroy put aside her passivity and acted, following Fleshman and leaving her son to search for the wound of the cosmos. Aroin, in attempting to heal chaos, was slowly stripped of his healing magic and in the end lay near death. He finally hid in the physical plane and survived long enough to see Yelm rise and greet his mother, but his powers were never the same. Aroin, who survived his injuries, no longer held the power of magical healing, and his cult teaches the skills and abilities that are used to heal. The worship of Shalamar Arroy is a harsh and prohibitive one due to the nature of the money acting in self-defence, and the use of weapons is prohibited. Beyond the Veil of Death, most devout of their worshippers return to the world as healing spirits. Healers of Shalamar Arroy are particularly non-political in nature, promising to heal all those that need it, and as such are highly respected by all, and will always be included in councils, but little heeded. The cult makes a show of retaining neutrality with the simple theory that if they treat everyone with peace, then that will inspire others to do the same. This is considered slightly naive, as there are creatures in the world such as brews who want nothing to do with healing, and cults that have no respect for them such as Zarak. The cult has no central authority, with the various temples having a network of wandering healers, and with the large temples being divided into wards that are specialists in different problems, wounds, diseases, poisons, etc., and the Grand Hospital in the Holy Country is the centre of power. Anyone wishing to join the cult must be genuinely sincere in their wishes, something that will be checked with divination. Creatures of chaos have been known to join the cult, such as the Wild Healer of Rockwoods, who is a brew. Those that join the cult can learn a multitude of healing skills, as well as the spell Preserve Herbs. Initiates can gain other skills, find healing plants, as well as the Sleep spell. Rune Lords, unlike those from other cults, are not great warriors but great healers who are beloved by all. Rune Priests have access to powerful healing spells. They get the 1-point Comfort Song, as well as a multitude of cure spells, as well as Heal Area and Refine Medicine. They gain the 2-point Cure All Disease, Cure Soul Waste, Heal Constitution and Regrow Limb. Additionally, they gain the 3-point Resurrection, which is reusable. The spirit of reprisal of the cult is infection. Those that betray the cult will always find themselves unable to resist disease and will always catch the chronic form of it. The cult is also, as you would expect, associated with Aroin, who gives the Find Healing Plant skill. From fellow Lightbringers, she gains the 3-point rune spell Create Neutral Ground from Asaris and the 3-point Analyse Magic from Lancor Mai. From Orlanth, they gain the 1-point Telekinesis spell, as well as protection from the cult. From Aldrya, they gain Heal Body, and from Aritha, Speak to Beasts. Initiates and healers of Shalamar Arroy also have the unique ability to bring a Stormbull worshipper out of a berserker rage. Healers of Shalamar Arroy never ask for payment for their services, though a custom enforced via the gods themselves requires those that are safe from poison, disease or maiming should immediately give the healer's temple half of his available cash and 10% of everything that they earn for the next year. Shalamar Arroy healers will not accompany adventurers on looting expeditions, but will go on rescue missions. Next up is Lancor Mai. Associated with the runes of Truth and Stasis, Lancor Mai was born the son of Mostal and a Renoir who lived upon the Spike. When Orlanth slew Yelm, all the gods and goddesses of light went with him to hell, and this included the Light of Knowledge, which left Lancor Mai without inspiration. He set off to find the missing goddess and met with the other Lightbringers. When Yelm returned to the world, Lancor Mai married the Light of Knowledge. After death, worshippers of Lancor Mai know that they will travel to his court in the Tower of Ivory to sit at the feet of the eternal source of knowledge. The cult of Lancor Mai provides the same services to the material plane that their god does for the spirit plane. Information for those that can pay for it. The cult tries to stay out of politics, though there is much intra-temple bickering amongst them, with accusations of hoarding information being slung around. They favour other Lightbringers and despise those that would destroy knowledge and hate chaos as it destroyed the spike. The cult has a well-established network of temples, though there is no monolithic leader, though the Holy Country Temple has the most clout. The temples are presided over by a high priest who is also the official chief librarian, with 3 subordinates that deal with temple duties. The provost of apprentices, who maintains the physical temple grounds, arranges room on board for apprentices and lay members and collects payment for instruction. The chief of lawmasters, who is in charge of administering all non-magical instruction and the copying of scrolls and books, and the chief of priests, who is in charge of magical battle and rune training and administers the temple's evaluation of treasure. There are also wild sages, those who venture into ruins to seek their innermost secrets. These are considered disdainful by their cloistered compatriots, a feeling that is generally mutual. The block is considered a very holy place, and the centre of power is the Temple of the Pharaoh in the Holy Country, where Lancor Mai is said to have rested with his bride after time began. There are 2 types of cult membership: apprentices who become scribes, historians and clerks, and worshippers who come into the temple to learn. As you might expect, a whole host of skills can be learned at temples of Lancor Mai for the right price. Initiates must be masters of the cult skills, and rune lords are essentially savants that only generally fight in places that knowledge must be fought for, such as the rubble of Pavus. They are known as Sage Lords, and are sworn to never mix into individual quarrels unless the temple is threatened. They also have the ability to increase their skills beyond 100%. Rune priests are known as Sage Priests, and the central authority of temples sits with them. They have access to the 1-point rune spell Analyze Magic and Translate, the 2-point spells Knowledge, Mind Read, Clairvoyance/Clairaudience and True Speak, and the 3-point spell Reconstruction. The spirit of reprisal of the cult is the Brain Flayer that infects apostates with a chronic case of brain fever. The subcult of Dilfar the Deep-Sighted gives the cult the Evaluate Treasure skill, and the Grey Ones give the Map-Making skill. From Shalamar Arroy they gain the 1-point rune spell Cure Brain Fever, and from Asari's the 3-point spell Create Neutral Ground. From the Orlanth Rex arm of the Cult of Orlanth, they gain the 1-point telekinesis spell. From Lancor Mai's father Mostal, they have the ability to teach others alchemy. Visually, most sages of Lancor Mai wear beards if possible, with women and those of races who can't grow beards wearing false ones. They also wear grey clothes. They can only marry within the cult, and their temples are built to resemble the Y shape of the Truth Rune. The last of the Lightbringers detailed is Orlanth. Perhaps the most important god in all of RuneQuest, Orlanth is one of the sons of Umath and associated with the runes of air, motion and mastery. He has a legendary rivalry with the Elm that culminated in Orlanth using the sword Death to slay him, bringing the Lesser Darkness to the world. Orlanth led a strong army of immortals in the Lesser Darkness and even fought Ylmalio and defeated him. When Chaos entered the world, Orlanth found his mother dead, his father chained between the earth and sky, and vowed to set right the wrongs he had brought upon the world. He and the other Lightbringers then set off on their quest to rescue the world. Due to his leadership, the Lightbringers acknowledge his superiority over Yelm, calling him King of the Gods, although not all feel this way. Through the Dawn Ages and into time, the ancient rivalry seeped through the worshippers of both gods, and during the Empire of the Worm's Friends in the Second Age, Orlanth's people turned away from him to dragon magic. After the Dragonkill War of 1200, both Yelm and Orlanth were weak. In the Third Age, a new rival was born, the Red Goddess. She had some powers akin to both Yelm and Orlanth, and worship of the Red Moon grew. The Northern gods fell before her relentless march towards Dragon Pass, and then she set herself against Orlanth to fight for the Middle Air. Orlanth's worship is widespread, and he has 3 recognised forms: Orlanth Adventurous, Orlanth Thunderous, and Orlanth Rex. Adventurous is the most widespread, being the patron of those that wander seeking adventure. Thunderous is worshipped by those that commune with the violent storms of nature, and Rex is the aspect worshipped by chieftains, nobles and poets. The right up here is for Orlanth Adventurous. Orlanth provides an outlet for those tribal people who do not wish to follow the barbarian gods, and indeed, Orlanthi may even participate in ceremonies dedicated to Waha and Eritha, though they may not have any positions of power on a Waha tribal council, though rune priests and lords are allowed to sit in on discussions. They are prized as those who can deal with outsiders or deliver messages to strangers. The cult has a permanent rivalry with both Yelm and Ylmalio, though they do not hate each other and fight at every meeting. Indeed, Orlanthi and Ylmalio cultists can be friends. He is obviously friendly towards fellow Lightbringer cults and worshippers, but neutral towards darkness gods and the Waha pantheon. He has a hatred for the Lunar Empire, and this is mutual. There is no permanent structure to the Orlanth adventurous cult in Prax, with each high priest running an independent ministry, which consists of worshippers and the occasional Orlanth Rex priest. The Orlanth adventurous arm of the cult has no permanent centre of power, as it changes with the movement of the winds, although the Wind Temple in the Storm Hills is a special place of reverence. Lay members can be anyone who breathes air, and even includes all of the elder races. Initiates must swear to devote themselves to the winds and may receive room and board from any Orlanth temple. Rune Lords, or Wind Lords as they are known, are the embodiment of the adventurer, travelling the world seeking danger and strife in order to honour Orlanth. They even have a set of poems they need to recite when they meet Rune Lords and priests of Yelmalio, Lightbringers, Darkness worshippers, and even Chaos creatures. Rune priests, or Wind Voices, are the vessels for the magic of Orlanth and are responsible for the spiritual health of their ministry. They must always aid both the members of their congregation and an initiate of the Lightbringers. They must eat eggs once per week as a sign of contempt for Yelmalio, and can never have birds as familiars, preferring cats. They gain the 1-point rune spell Telekinesis and the 2-point Wind Words. They have the powerful Guided Teleportation and Teleportation as 3-point spells. The spirits of reprisal of the cult are known as the Enforcers and are several types of spirits. The best known are the Wind Fists, ugly bat-winged creatures with bronze fists to attack those that murder cult members. Flint Slingers, that are long-legged spirits that are capable of great leaps, who throw magical stones, and Impests, who are small creatures that cause rashes, coughs and hives for those that have committed minor infractions. They're aligned to the Sandals of Darkness, who stole the 1-point rune spell Dark Walk from Goleta, and from Asaris they gained the 1-point Lock spell. From Lancor Mai they gained the 1-point Analyze Magic spell, and from Shalamar Arroy they gained Heal Constitution. From the Orlanth Rex arm of the cult they gained the 2-point Command Worshippers. Initiates of Orlanth will always be able to sense a change in the weather, with Windlords and Voices able to predict it one day in advance. Additionally, they specialise in the use of the sword, but withhold the scimitar due to its association with the Red Moon. Right, the next section we move on to is the non-human gods. These gods have declined with the rise of mankind, but have survived due to the way their worshippers are bound by birth and faith. The first up is Goleta. She is one of the old dark deities and is associated with the runes of man and darkness. From the old dark she stepped forward and mated with the man rune and spawned the race of trolls. They initially lived in the bowels of the underworld, living a primitive yet satisfying life. Goleta walked freely among her people and founded many houses of troll nobility to rule over all. These were the mistress race trolls. When Yelm came to hell, Goleta was one of the darkness deities that fought him, but who like the others was defeated, and the trolls fled in anger to the surface world, which they ruled during the Great Darkness. The trolls bravely fought Chaos, and during this war, Goleta built the Castle of Lead near Dragon Pass. This region became known as Decori Inkarth and attracted the greatest enemies of Chaos. Goleta aided Waha once and was once saved by Aroin. Being one of the most powerful deities at the Dawning, she was consulted in the Great Compromise, agreeing to it like all the other gods. In the Dawn Age, Goleta was a member of the First Council, and were ultimately cursed in the time of the Broken Council with the Great Woe, or the Troll King Curse, which did not destroy the race but stunted their growth. Despite this, they have remained strong in Decori Inkarth. Trolls know that Goleta lives in a secret place in the underworld, and will go to her upon death by the judges of the dead. Troll funerals consist of a chant to send the soul off, and then the body is returned to darkness by being eaten. Goleta is the ancestress of the trolls, and at the root of their being, and is also one of the primary fighters against chaos, a fact that is begrudged by humans and troll haters but is undeniable, with her importance being enough that occasionally humans will join, although those human cults of Goleta are often considered a perverted Dakafal cult. She dislikes all of the gods of light and fire, also disliking the Lightbringers for a number of reasons, primarily that she sees that they deserted their posts defending the cosmos when they went off on their quest. She also dislikes Mostal and Aldrya, especially as the dwarves invented iron, which they cannot use. The cult is widespread but has no set structure, with Goleta herself being the head of the church. Tribes are run by priestly hierarchies, with mistress race trolls always being the head of the community. The centre of power is the Castle of Lead in Decori Inkarth, with it being rumoured that Goleta herself lives there. Lay membership is granted to all trolls and trollkin. Initiates vow to follow the tenets of the faith, working with the priestesses to fight chaos. Rune Lords are known as Karg's sons. Karg is one of Goleta's sons, and they are entirely dedicated to war. They have a few strange cult restrictions. They're not allowed to speak directly to trollkin, requiring underlings to act as a go-between. On a seasonal holy day they must eat a relative, which can be a trollkin. They cannot sleep under a roof while their people are at war. They cannot pass a herd of sheep or pigs without killing one to give to their priests. They must always let a musician finish a song or tune before praising or criticising it, and they must be armed at all times, even in their homes. They gain a multitude of benefits for these restrictions, such as a set of magical lead armour, spirits bound to their weapons, and leading armies into battle. Additionally, they can sponsor troll ball teams. Rune Priests are social leaders in a theocratic hierarchy. They gain the 1-point rune spell Dark Sea and Blinding, and the 2-point spell Counter Chaos. The Spirits of Reprisal are the Grey Furies, gargoyle-like creatures with magically sharpened claws. The cult is also associated with that of Gerak Kag, the famous leaping troll hero that invaded Pavus. Tree Chopper, a god-time troll who stole an axe from an earth goddess which he desecrated forests with, and Stonebiter, who had a special stone-biting spell that he used against dwarves. The cult of Kygalitor is associated with the cult of Dakafal and Zaraxaran, who has a very trollish relationship on Rune Lord level, competing for social roles. They gain the 1-point rune magic spell Crush from him. From the contrastingly gentle troll goddess Xiola Umbar, they gain the 1-point healing trance spell. Finally, it gives us some information on the difference between troll and human societies and the prejudices that are held, stressing that although their society appears base and utterly primitive when compared to human society, their intelligence should not be underrated. It also touches upon the trollish dark sense, a combination of hearing, smell and feeling, as well as some kind of non-specific sensory ability that allows them to manoeuvre in the dark like humans do in sunshine, although sunshine doesn't actually do them harm despite them being creatures of darkness. The other troll described here is Zaraxaran. Zaraxaran is the troll god that represents the mindless explosion of fear and frenzy against order and chaos that is only sated with unlimited violence. He is associated with the runes of death and darkness. When Ermal stole the sword Death from Humact, Zaraxaran desired that power and stalked Humact, watching it pass from hand to hand. When he had the opportunity, he seized Death and cut down Flamel, an act that worsened the Lesser Darkness by adding the Great Hunger. He fought and wounded Yalmalio and stole his fire powers. He feuded with Orland, forever holding a grudge against him for bringing back the light. And chaos entered the world. Zaraxaran led the struggle against the void and grew to be favoured by many trolls who fought with him, earning his title of Lord God of the Legions of Death. He was a widely worshipped god at the Dawning, and his worship only grew in the Dawn Ages. His legions fought Gabaji's cult at the end of the Dawn Age, and by the time of the Empire of the Worm's Friends, worshippers formed a council in Shadow's Dance that held more sway than Kygalitor. Worshippers have no fear of death, as they know that when their spirit leaves their body, it will go to Zaraxaran's fortress in Hell to join the Legions of Death. Indeed, worshippers hope that their body is reanimated as a zombie to continue fighting, as they have no regards for their earthly shell after death. His dislike of Humact is well established, and he has no love for light and Yalmalio. They will work well with fellow darkness deities, and he's fond of the hero witch of Dragon Pass, Crag Spider, whose gangs are usually made up of Zaraxaran worshippers. He adores slaughter and bloodshed, and any and all dirty tricks and torture are considered legitimate and encouraged. He ferociously hates the Red Moon due to her acceptance of chaos and her having the effrontery to shed light where the compromise decreed there would be none. Aldrya and Mostal are ancient enemies of Zaraxaran since god time. Temples of Zaraxaran are regimented in nature with a death priest in charge. Each temple is organised into companies with a death lord in charge of them. A death captain, who is usually both a priest and lord, presides as commanding officer. The centre of power is the throne, and has been so since the great faceless statue marched off with Pavus. On holy days they like to challenge a lone Humacti to single combat, then gang up on him for the easy kill. The cult is open to all dark trolls, great trolls, mistress race trolls, men, dragon newts, beastmen and baboons. Only exceptional trollkin are allowed. As you might expect, elves and dwarves are forbidden as are creatures tainted with chaos, including cave trolls. They can be taught all smashing weapons and battle magic. Initiates must be skilled in weapons and may learn how to brew blade venom. Rune Lords, or Death Lords as they are known, are expected to be the embodiment of Zaraxaran. They're fearless leaders and show no mercy. They must be highly skilled in mace and can never cooperate with Aldrya, Humact, Mostal, Orlanth or Yalmalio worshippers and will refuse to deal with Lunars. Rune priests act as chaplains for their companies and have access to the 1-point rune spells Create Ghost, Create Skeleton, Crush and Fear, the 2-point spells Seal Wound, Berserker and Create Zombie, and the 3-point spell Sever Spirit. The Spirit of Reprisal is Hell Roar due to the noise it makes when it attacks apostates. Also related to the cult is Amanstan, the Spirit of Fire that holds the magic Zaraxaran stole from Yalmalio during the Great Darkness. The use of fire with a darkness deity is unique to Zaraxaran and makes him impressive to other trolls, though the effort in doing this is strenuous as trolls must expend twice the normal amount of rune points to get the spell Summon Salamander. From Kygalitor they get the 1-point Dark Sea spell, and from fellow Chaos Fighter Stormbull they gain the 1-point Face Chaos spell, and from his sister Xiola Umbar they gain the 2-point Healing Trance spell. Cultists prefer to wear blood red and wield a flanged mace. The final deity covered is Aldrya. Associated with the runes of Plant, which is modified by Earth, and the rune of Fertility, she is the child of Enalder and Flamal. Aldrya was loved by 2 jealous gods, both of whom said that they would destroy her if she loved the other. She sought refuge among the gods of the Celestial Court, who gave her a place on the slopes of the Spike, and thus she was the first tree planted on the Cosmic Mountain. She took a husband called Shanas, who was a son of the goddess of love, and his presence brought forth the spirits of the forest, known as the Dryads, and from the smaller plants and shrubs the Runners. She took a stick and fashioned a race akin to man from it, and thus the elves were born. Pixies were fashioned by Shanas for his wife to make her smile. The Green Age filled the world with life, but the ancient woods reacted slowly to the destruction of the gods' war, often becoming innocent bystanders to the violence. Death came into the hands of the elves, which they took and enchanted upon their sacred earth tool, the axe. They slew many dwarfs with it and turned the world stone cold forever. Xeraxaran stole the weapon and slew Aldraya's father, Flamal, forever making the axe the bane of the elves. Grief-stricken, Analda told her children to withhold the earth's bounty until Flamal was restored to life, and Aldraya obeyed, entering an unending sleep, and her children began to die in the cold darkness. Flamal was liberated by the Lightbringers, but his restoration would have had no meaning without the long struggle of the Protector who guarded the forest while Aldraya slept. They were led by High King Elf, the leader of his race of green elves, who led his band through the whole of the darkness to protect the forest from their enemies. He was aided by Aroin and Yelmalio, but hated the wildfire god Oakfed, who devoured the forests. During the Dawn Ages, the Aldrai army were one of the most powerful races in the world. They sat on the councils of the wise and Forkabaji. During the Second Age, they went into decline due to the humans turning the forests back. They returned slightly during the Third Age, though the religion has changed little in the 1600 years since time began. All Aldrai army believe in successive birth and rebirth and bury their dead in the earth. It is a cult of fertile plant life and the ancestral cult of the sentient and non-sentient Aldrai army. They have little sway in human affairs and an inherent disdain from followers of Mostal. Xeraxaran is an enemy due to his slaying of Flamal, and Kaigalitor is disliked due to the lack of mercy she showed the sleeping Aldrai army in God time. Of course, chaos is the foe of all living things, and the elves will often travel out of their forests to face it. Yelmalio was a friend of the cult, especially among those elves that are warlike. All Aldrai army claim to be one with a common heritage, though there are records of elf fighting elf. There are several different regions that claim to contain the Grove of Aldraya, though in truth the primal tree disappeared when the spike exploded. Elven strongholds are centred around worship of Aldraya, known as the spirits of the forest, and centred around the great trees who convey the word of the forest spirit to worshippers. The Great Tree is a tree that has survived from the God's Age that presides over the Council of Elders. This council decides on the ways of the forest. The beings of the forest are represented by members of the council. These great trees are essentially the centres of power for every forest. As you might expect, the cult has many holy days that are spread amongst the seasons. All Aldrai army are automatically members of this cult upon birth. Additionally, dragon newts, beastmen, ducks and humans can join the cult. Lay members can learn the food song spell. Initiates of the cult can have different paths. Dryads become elder sisters and must bind themselves to a spirit of Aldraya. Non-Dryads have other options such as joining the elf cult. Rune Lords are known as Wood Lords and are always members of the elf cult. They can never eat meat or kill except in self-defence, except against undead who must be destroyed when encountered. Rune priests are responsible for maintaining the vitality of the woods and are always at the forefront when dealing with outsiders. They gain an empathic connection with Aldraya through the communion of the tree, and this guards them against emotion-affecting spells such as Befuddle, Demoralise, Fanaticism, and Xeraxaran's Fear spell. They also gain some cult-specific rune spells. They get the 1-point Accelerate Growth, Plant Eye, Arrow Trance, Create Warrior of Wood, Silence, Tangle Thicket, and Sun Ripen, and the 2-point Chameleon and 3-point Heal Body spells. The cult also has a special sect called the Gardeners, who are wise and respected members of the community who gain the 3-point rune spell Recover Spirit. The Spirit of Retribution takes the form of nature spirits that will haunt the transgressor and attack at moments of great stress. From Flamal, they gain the 1-point rune spell Bear, and from Gata, they gain the 1-point spell Gnome to Gargoyle. Aroin teaches the cult the skill Find Healing Plants, and Yelmalio gives the 1-point rune spell Cat's Eye and the 2-point spell Speak to Beast. Shalamar Aroi gives the 2-point spell Cure All Disease. We have some discussion in Elf Society which also talks about elves that are exiled from Aldrai Army Society, known as Rootless and Renegade Elves, and it goes into the various types of elf, then it gives us a flow diagram of the ancestry of the elves. The final part of the book is the appendices. Here we have a very handy cult compatibility table which shows the basics of how the different cults in the book feel towards each other, which strangely shows Kaigalitor being neutral and friendly towards the Lightbringers despite her write-up saying that she had enmity towards them. It then goes into the nomad weapons and which ones are associated with the specific tribes and a rough breakdown of the cult membership by tribe. This is followed by a calendar of holy days and the new skills that are available by cult as well as the new battle magics. We also have a section on the properties of True Stone which talks about its usage and how to refine it, and then a list of new rune magic. We also have a section on slave bracelets which are discussed in the story that is spread throughout the book, and a piece on weapon use which talks about the pike or two-handed spear with shield and the scimitar. This is followed by a chronology which stretches from God time to the year 1610 ST when the Lunar Empire conquers Prax and Pavus, and finally a section on other Goleta material. The density of material that is presented here is not for the faint-hearted. I've cherry-picked what I have felt are important points throughout my 2 videos, because if I hadn't, I could have talked for hours, and this is entirely reflective on the incredible piece of work we have here. The cults have very deep-rooted histories with rivalries that go back to the time when the gods walked the earth. They have a very organic feel to them, and they don't feel like they exist in a vacuum and instead feel like they have developed over time into the incarnations presented here, and that they all seem to exist to fill a genuine need within the world. They're presented in a way that makes them feel like there's a reason to be a member that goes beyond simply obtaining access to powerful rune spells, and all of the cults are given a full and thorough treatment that give the players plenty to think about and use to their advantage. The importance of the action of most of the gods included here during God time is cleverly threaded together, and the reasons for the relationships between the gods is entirely believable within the context of Glorantha's prehistory. One thing of note here is that every god, even the beloved Shalamar, has their own faults and flaws which could turn people away from worshipping them, and it's a distinct reflection on the people of Goleta. The book does at times include perhaps too much information, and the art, although decent in places, is decidedly ropey in others, but this shouldn't colour your journey too much. There are many shades of grey even amongst the gods themselves, and this is very much to the credit of the writers. Steve Perrin and Greg Stafford breathed life into the Prax region in a way that you don't see often, and dare I say it, one that we may never see again. This is a book that should simply be treasured by gamers. I give Cults of Prax a 9.5 out of 10. If you enjoyed this review, please make sure to hit the thumbs up, subscribe to my channel and check out my other videos. Also, if you're interested in buying this product, I'll put some links below. Lastly, if you enjoy what I produce here, then maybe think about supporting me on Patreon. Bud out.